Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley, and you're listening to Knightline Extra, only on the Knightline Sports Network. All right, that's right. I am Andrew Phegley, and this is Knightline Extra from the award-winning Knightline Sports Network. Knightline, the winners of the Florida BlogCon's favorite podcast of the year at their 8th annual awards. Thank you very much. Well, what a week it is. A little something called College Game Day arrives at UCF, along with a primetime showcase on ABC, a battle for the Eastern Division between the Knights and Cincinnati. As for the polls, across the board 11, AP coaches, and the College Football Playoff Invitational. In this Knightline Extra, we'll hear from a Cincinnati insider. Trylko hops on the AAC's conference call to talk with Bearcats head coach Luke Phegley, and former UCF quarterback Nick Patti goes inside the red zone. Here we go.
5 questions with an insider, getting to know this week's opponent.
Time to learn more about 9-1 Cincinnati. Let's turn to Chad Brendel, owner and publisher of BearcatJournal.com, a part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Chad joins us on the Knightline Hotline. Chad, how you doing?
Doing fantastic. Yourself?
Pretty good. We're excited about this weekend. It's going to be a big game, I think, for both teams. It's going to be an exciting day.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told any Cincinnati fans that this was going to be in the future for this season back in August, they would have told you that you were crazy, and I'm guessing that's Luke Phegley included. I don't think anybody saw this coming, but the way that they've played, they've earned 9-1, and really in a lot of ways probably should be 10-0 coming into this game.
Okay, well, let's talk X and O's a little bit here. Why have the Bearcats rebounded since losing in overtime at Temple?
I think the main thing is going from, as Central Florida saw last year, Cincinnati was one of the worst defenses in the country. Now they're in the top 10 or just outside the top 10 in almost every metric across the board defensively. So even though the Temple game was a bit of a disappointment, clearly, losing in overtime like they did, giving up a late lead, the defense has been able to show up every week, and that's really kept them in games. They've been almost impossible to get yardage on inside that 10, 15-yard box. Teams have had some success going over the top on them, which worries me with Mackenzie Milton and his incredible accuracy. But they've been able to be really good at the line of scrimmage. Offensively, it's been on the shoulders of sophomore running back Michael Warren, who he's up over 1,000 yards already. He just set the school record for touchdowns in a season with 18. And he's really been kind of the foundation and that rock-solid presence on offense that has allowed them to play ball control, play to their defense. They've got one of the best punters in the country in James Smith. And it's kind of, Luke Phegley, everybody thinks because he was, at Ohio State that he's an Urban Meyer guy, but he's really a Jim Tressel guy. And there's a lot of similarities to Tressel ball, defense, running game, special teams. That's really taken Cincinnati and pushed them to a different level this year.
Okay, well, Cincinnati's had back-to-back impressive wins, shutting out Navy and rolling over that team from Tampa that we like to call the Cows. What's the offense doing right, and how good is the line?
The line has been exceptional run blocking. They've had a little bit of issues at times, nothing too major in terms of pass blocking, but especially early in games, teams have been able to give them a little bit of trouble in pass protection. But they've been fantastic up front, controlling the line of scrimmage and giving Mike Warren room to operate. And that's been most of the teams that they're seeing are stacking the box and selling out to stop both Mike Warren and then redshirt freshman quarterback Desmond Ridder has also been, a pretty big threat with his legs. But the offensive line has still been able to hold up and really, find some space for Warren. The big thing about Mike Warren, and this is a pretty wild stat, through 10 games, he's been tackled for a loss 5 times on the season. And this is a guy that's carrying the ball 20, 25, sometimes 30 times a game. He's just really hard to get in the backfield. And if you do hit him in the backfield, chances are he still finds a way to get a yard or two and turn something into nothing. That's really been the strength of the offense this year.
All right, shifting to defense, we're hearing a lot about Cincinnati's strength against the run, especially in the past 2 weeks. Who are the playmakers to keep an eye on?
The two guys, if you're looking, and I don't know how much you'll hear their name called in terms of making tackles, but the two guys that set the tone are their two senior defensive tackles, and Marquise Copeland and Cortez Broughton. They absolutely demolished Navy's offense, and South Florida looked like South Florida was so scared of those two that they almost abandoned the run completely and was what was a 1-2 score game pretty much the entire time. They didn't try to really run up the middle at all. A lot of it falls on those two guys because they've been so good at the point of attack. Cincinnati had a big loss in the Navy game, and outside linebacker Perry Young, who was a victim to a cut block from Navy that I'd scream about for days if I could. Their ability to take guys out at the knees, but they've got a local product in Jarrell White that stepped in for him and led the team in tackles last week with 10. And Malik Clemens, the other outside linebacker who moved down from safety, gives them a lot of security right around the line of scrimmage. And then you also have to talk about middle linebacker Brian Wright, who's a junior. He was a defensive end last year. Luke Fickell surprised us all when we showed up for spring camp, moving Brian Wright to middle linebacker. And he's been fantastic there. He's 6'5", 240 pounds, can really move. And he's been kind of an anchor in the middle of that Cincinnati defense. So that front seven is where they have been spectacular this year.
Well, what's been the reaction to a top 25 ranked Cincinnati being part of a primetime game at UCF, complete with College Game Day, the sideshow of that on campus?
The fan base is head over heels ecstatic right now. I mean, you had the end of the Tommy Tuberville era, which was very, very ugly. If you remember him telling a fan to go to hell and get a job, that didn't go over real well with the fan base, shockingly.
Yeah.
And in Luke Fickell's first year, there were just a lot of mistakes that needed to be corrected, and a lot of getting to know guys and how they would best be, suited for what Luke Fickell wanted to do here. They go 4-8 2 years in a row. And, everybody looked at this year and the general consensus among the fan base was get to 6-6 and go to a bowl game. And that shows us that, things are back on track. And all of a sudden you're sitting at 9-1. And I think Sunday when the prime, was announced 8:00 prime time on ABC, and then game day announced that they were coming, I think everybody's just kind of sat back with a smile on their face and thought, wow, that nobody saw this coming. And to have this team playing like they are has been just a huge boost in the city. And a lot of happy Bearcat fans, especially when the pro team in town is giving up 500 yards a week in defense.
Right. Yeah, that's understandable. Do you go to the interviews and stuff with the team during the week? What are they saying? Are they saying anything different? Are they saying they're trying to ignore the hype or not?
No, Luke's actually pretty different in that. He addresses it with the team and said, he feels like it's more of a detriment if you try to act like it's not a big deal. Because it is a big deal. And he wants them to talk about it. They talked about it on Sunday and Monday. And then, once they get into that practice week mentality on Tuesday, it goes back to just preparing. But he hasn't shied away from it. And they know, a lot of these kids, when they committed to Cincinnati, especially the older guys, the program was still on an upswing, from Brian Kelly to Butch Jones, and you still winning league titles and playing in BCS bowls, and those kids all thought they were coming to Cincinnati for that, and they've been here through back-to-back 4-8 seasons. So, for a lot of these kids that have been around a while, this is what I came here for, and I'm excited to be a part of this type of stage. And for the younger guys that came here with Luke Fickell, their whole mantra was getting the program back on top, and they feel like they've had a big part in that, especially on a team that's the third youngest in the country to be at this point that they are in year two of the Luke Fickell era. Everybody's riding a pretty good wave right now, especially in that locker room.
What are you hearing about the fans? Are they going to travel well coming to Orlando for this? It's a big deal.
Yeah. There is a lot of talk, especially on our message board, of everybody organizing trips down there, planning tailgates. And, it's almost got the feeling of like a bowl game almost, because Orlando's pretty easy to get to, especially, you've got a lot of regional airlines that can get down there for, a couple $100 round trip. There's a large contingent of Cincinnati fans that I fully expect to be in Orlando on Saturday.
That's good. I mean, because there's a lot of teams that don't travel well. I mean, you see it every week. We would love to have a bunch of people from the opposing team here. We don't mind that.
I know they sold out the allotment that got sent from Central Florida. That's sold out in about 20 minutes.
Okay, good. Yeah. The whole game is sold out. There should be some standing room, something, I would think, coming up. They're saying it's a hard sellout, though, and it should be. This is a big game, not only for UCF, not only for Cincinnati, but this is a big game for the American. To be on ABC, to have game day featuring two American teams, not featuring one of these teams against a Power 5 team, but against each other is a huge deal as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, absolutely. And this is a conference, I was talking about this on an appearance I did a couple weeks ago. It's wild. When this conference was built, everybody thought, well, football is going to be trash and basketball is going to be the bread and butter with UConn and Memphis and Cincinnati. And, now you've got Wichita State and Temple and Houston and SMU. And everybody thought, man, this is going to be a good basketball league. It's a football league. There's make no mistake about it. I mean, we're going on 3 or 4 years in a row that there's been multiple teams spend time in the top 25. And I think we've seen 4 teams at one time in the top 25, either last year or the year before. And the level of football, it's funny, when Luke Fickell got the job, he got about halfway through last season, and I asked him in one of his press conferences, I said, are you surprised at the talent in this league? And he's been very refreshing as a coach, because he actually tells you what he thinks and doesn't give you coach speak. And he said, yeah, I didn't realize, not just that there's some teams that, have some athletes and can play offense, but top to bottom, there's a lot of really good talent in this league. And it opened my eyes to the type of football that was being played and how much of a jump we need to make to be competitive in this league. And I think that's something that's going to be a lot of fun for the nation to watch on Saturday night as these two teams play. And, it's interesting because you've got UCF as kind of the old guard, having undefeated last season, undefeated this season so far. And Cincinnati's kind of that upstart with the young roster and a new coach. And it's going to be great to watch that play out over 60 minutes on Saturday night.
Yeah, it is. I just think it's great for the American. I hope that some people that don't know a lot about the American tune into that game, just happen to be tuning into the ABC game and see these two American teams. And I guarantee you it's going to be a crazy environment. And, it's going to be worth watching on TV. I think it'll be very, very exciting. How do you see this one playing out? What does Cincinnati have to do to get the job done and be the spoiler for UCF?
I mean, I think Memphis kind of laid out the blueprint in terms of what Cincinnati does. I think you've got to play good defense. You've got to protect against Mackenzie Milton, and this is, as breaking this down from the Cincinnati standpoint, he's just so accurate on the deep ball. I haven't seen anybody throw the deep ball like him in college football this year. And that's really, like I said, the main way that the Cincinnati defense has been beat this year, is over the top on kind of 50-50 balls and guys going up and getting it and making a play. You've got to be able to keep UCF's Central Florida's offense in check a little bit, and then run the ball with Mike Warren and Des Ritter, Charles McClelland, a freshman out of Georgia, that has kind of taken off in the last couple weeks, and control the clock and do the best you can to keep the ball out of their hands. Central Florida reminds me of the Brian Kelly era of UC football, where if they had the ball for 3 minutes on a scoring drive, it was an extended scoring drive.
Yeah, I mean, most of our scores are around like 30 to 55 seconds. I mean, really, honestly, I mean, they're just extremely fast and short, and and that kind of hurts our defense because they have to be out there for so long sometimes, and they're not on the sideline in between for very long. You normally worry about third down and doing 3 and out, and then your defense having to go back there, but we score so fast half the time. And they can slow it down, and they have slowed it down, and we've seen it. Navy, they just played the most our fans were extremely upset because they just played this vanilla offense that was just lulled it to death. I mean, it was just, people were going crazy. Oh, my God, what's happened to our offense? Well, we were playing a game to win a game and not to have any question about it, not do anything stupid, just win the game, So we had time of possession was pretty high. Navy still, of course, with their running game, and they threw the ball 3 times and missed every time, and it was different for our fans. So they're a little on edge this week. So I think that you're going to see UCF offense on full afterburner this week. It's going to be an exciting game. You have any kind of a score prediction or anything?
I haven't really broken it down to that point yet, but
do you think that Cincinnati could do it?
I think they can, but I think they have to play mistake-free. They've had a propensity, and it's why they lost against Temple, and it's why they almost lost on the road at SMU, that they kind of shoot themselves in the foot at times. And when you're playing an offense as high-powered as Central Florida, you can't shoot yourself in the foot. You can't give them extra opportunities because, you're in a situation, say it's 21-14 Central Florida. Cincinnati turns it over inside their own 20-yard line. Central Florida gets a touchdown. Then they go 3 and out. Central Florida gets another touchdown, and all of a sudden you're at 35-14 and you're out of the game. Like they can't allow stuff like that to happen that they've, in other games has been a problem, especially on the road, because that Temple and SMU games were both on the road, and they kind of allowed those games to be closer than they should have been.
Right.
That you're not going to. Central Florida is not going to allow you to do that. Well, your defense isn't going to be able to save you. The Temple game. If you watch the Temple game, Desmond Ridder fumbled on the opening possession inside the 10-yard line. Temple got it at like the 7-yard line, had to kick a field goal. Then they fumbled the kickoff on the next play. They almost stopped them again, but Temple got a touchdown on 3rd down, or else they would have had to have kicked 2 field goals, getting possession twice inside Cincinnati's 20-yard line. Your defense isn't going to be able to save you like that against Central Florida, so they're going to have to play pretty error-free. I'm leaning around somewhere like 35-27 Central Florida right now. I think if Cincinnati wins, that score will probably be lower because they're going to be doing everything they can to control the clock and keep the ball out of Mackenzie Milton's hands.
Right. All right. Well, I mean, it's like I've said probably 3 times already. This is a huge game for everybody. I'm really looking forward to it. Our fans are really looking forward to it. I know yours are. It's going to be a great game, and good luck to Cincinnati, and let the best man win, I guess, right?
Absolutely. Good luck to you guys as well, and it should be a good one on Saturday night. Really looking forward to it.
Are you going to come down?
No, actually, we the website hosts watch parties at a local brewery, and I am in charge of running those watch parties.
Oh, okay.
And if I would have known that they were going to be 10-1, I would have said 9-1 going into this game. I would have said, you know what, this is on you guys. I'm gonna be in Orlando.
Right.
But by the time it happened, I was already committed. So I don't think I'm going to be able to make it down due to prior commitments. But I will definitely be dialed in with a couple hundred Bearcat fans, enjoying craft beer and pizza.
All right. Well, tell everybody about your website and how they can find you on social media and all that.
Chad Brendel, Brendel on social media. That's the Twitter, Facebook, whatever, at Chad Brendel. And then Bearcat Journal is the website, the Cincinnati 24/7 site. in the CBS Sports 24/7 Sports Network. BearcatJournal.com is where you can find us. So thanks a lot. Appreciate you guys having me on.
All right. Well, thank you to Chad. And now I get to talk to you guys a little bit about our new website. It is KnightlineSports.com. You'll find all kinds of stuff. You can listen to our shows there. You can listen to Knightline and Sons of UCF. You can see some news, see the schedules, and order T-shirts. Christmas is coming very, very soon, and it is the perfect time for you to get a Knightline T-shirt. So go to KnightlineSports.com and order your T-shirts today. All right, next up we hear from Cincinnati head coach Luke Fickell, and we're talking with former Knight Nick Patti when Knightline Extra continues in just a moment.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Knightline and Knightline Postgame Live. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
You've heard us talk about the great food at our good friend Kyle Israel's restaurant, the Little Greek Fresh Grill. The Little Greek now has franchises available. Please call 407-697-2272. That's 407-697-2272 to see what the Little Greek can do for you. Also, check out the Little Greek's newest location at 6536 Old Brick Road in Windermere, Florida. The Little Greek Fresh Grill. Fresh, flavorful, fabulous. All right, Trace Trylko was on the AAC's coaches conference call and asked Cincinnati's head coach Luke Fickell about how the Bearcats have grown and matured since last season's loss to UCF.
We are joined by Coach Luke Fickell from Cincinnati. The Bearcats are 9-1 overall, 5-1 in the American. Cincinnati hosted USF last Saturday, and Cincinnati won the game 35-23. Up next for the Bearcats, they'll be on the road this week to face UCF in Orlando on Saturday. The game will be 8 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. Coach, thank you for joining us, as always, on the call. If you just take a minute to tie up the win against USF, please. And we expect to see you as you head to Orlando for the game against UCF.
It was a tough-fought battle. I mean, it was a tale of kind of two halves. We came out really the second half, I thought, and played really, really well. We kind of gathered ourselves. I think we got a little emotional before the game, probably a little too high, and kind of plummeted as we went out there. Gave up some big plays defensively, which we hadn't done as much the entire year, but really kind of came together in the second half, and our offense kind of, really kind of gave us the energy and the momentum by running the football the way they did, and then making some big plays. So we were able to, obviously put an 8.5 minute drive together at the end of the game to kind of close it out and seal it, which is really just kind of an amazing, especially the way we played against them last year. I don't think we could move the ball much at all. So it was a tale of two halves, but really we ended up playing really well there in the second half and made some great adjustments. And then obviously this week it's a big game. First time a lot of these guys have been on a stage like this, and we got to be able to control our emotions again and handle the situation, the scene, and what it's all about is getting to game time and 8 o'clock, being at our best, not throughout all the other hype stuff that's going to be done throughout this entire week.
Any questions for Coach Luke Fickell, please? Star 1 on your telephone keypad to join the queue. Then the operator will introduce you.
We'll hear next from Trace Trylko with Knightline Sports Network.
Hello, Coach. Last year, UCF goes to Cincinnati, wins decidedly, and now you're in a primetime, high-profile showcase in Orlando this week. Could you just reflect on how you felt then and just how your club has bought into the process and how they've grown and matured in that?
It's come a long way, and I don't. It's not just a talent level. I mean, last year, whatever the score was, it wasn't as close as whatever the score was, to be honest with you. And for us to, kind of even in the off season to use a lot of those situations, not just as motivation, but ability to learn from. Because in the moment, the way it happened last year, it was really tough to learn from a lot of things because it was, almost too chaotic and almost, it was just very difficult. So for these guys to learn from those things and through the off season, learn from not just the mistakes, but how those things all went about, has shown the growth. And I don't just mean as football players. I mean the growth is understand that they can't do it by themselves. That you can't be a great defensive lineman without three other guys around you. They're going to give you an opportunity to get some one-on-ones and give you an opportunity, to make some plays based on what they do. Same thing with at our quarterback position, our ability to handle, I wouldn't say a controversy, but a battle at the position where everybody wants to focus and talk about. Those two guys have become really good friends, and throughout the entire season have made each other better. And it wasn't like that the year before when we had a kind of a quarterback battle going on, or even at the beginning of the year. So their ability to mature past that and understand that this is about something bigger than themselves.
Would you talk about the play of your offensive and defensive lines and how you think they match up with UCF from what you're seeing on film?
Well, I think that it's going to be a good matchup. I mean, I think UCF's offensive line has, probably one of the better ones that we've seen. And I think that's where we've had a lot of success this year, is just our ability for, us to play 6, 7, 8 guys up front defensive line-wise. They've, go back to the Navy game and some of those situations. They were a big difference in that game. I think it'll be a much more of a, evenly matched this week, and it's going to come down to, a lot of one-on-ones up front, because there's a lot of mano-a-mano when you look at what they do offensively and with spreading you out, with the ability for the quarterback to always be an option. So I think that's going to be a real challenge. It's going to be probably the biggest challenge those guys up front have had. Everybody thinks pass rush, but the reality is that ball comes out really, really quick. You need to be disciplined. You need to have the ability to win some of those one-on-ones. And then offensive line-wise, I think those guys are just, they're better as a whole than they are in any one individual. And I think that's probably the greatest thing you can say about them. I'm not saying that we don't have some talent up there. I'm not saying that. But the ability for those guys as a whole to be better than they are as individuals is what we kind of pride ourselves in. Now, they'll have a unique challenge. It's a front that, with some size and some speed that, I don't think we've seen every single week. So that's where the game's going to be won, I believe.
Thanks, Coach.
Hey, Night Nation. It's Adam from the Sons of UCF. Be sure to check out our show every Wednesday only on the Knightline Sports Network. Now, back to two guys who probably won't be Cow of the Week nominees, Andrew and Trace.
We continue getting you ready for this week's game against Cincinnati. We check in with former UCF quarterback Nick Patti in just a minute. Ever since I started Knightline, people have been asking me for advice. Usually, it's what team to bet on this week. The truth is, I don't know who's going to win, but if you think that you know, you gotta check out MyBookie. Remember, who you're betting on is just as important as who you're betting with. That's why I always tell people to bet with MyBookie. Trust me, guys, they're the best bet this season. They've been in business for years, they have great reviews online, and their mobile site is easy to use. Lay down some cash and win big today. They have in-game live betting, the most rewarding player perks in the business, and for you fantasy guys out there, you can even bet over-under on how many fantasy points a player is going to score each game. Join now and MyBookie will match your deposit dollar for dollar. Use promo code NIGHT to activate the offer. You play, you win, you get paid. Visit MyBookie online today. This segment is brought to you by Scouted, the app where athletes of all ages get exposed, discovered, and recruited. Download for free on the Apple Store or Google Play and get discovered today. Welcome to Inside the Red Zone with Nick, the Wild Knight Patti. All right, on the Knightline hotline, it's Nick Patti. Nick, number one, this is probably one of the biggest things ever to happen to UCF, as far as I'm concerned. Game day and this 8 p.m. on ABC, primetime, the game of the weekend. I'm still a little bit in shock that all this is actually happening.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm at a little bit of a disbelief as well. Obviously, just elated to see what our program has done in such a short amount of time, and somewhat been a part of that a little bit. Is just, I couldn't be more proud of what these guys are doing. For our university, what a landmark day. I mean, what a huge day for not only the football program, not only, the American Conference, but the university. I mean, it's, college game day has become sort of a pinnacle for the sport. What people tracking that and where they are from week to week. And for that to come to UCF at this time is just, it's well deserved, I think. And obviously that's why they're there. But at the same time, I mean, what a huge moment for our school. So exciting. Awesome. Well deserved, but, it's just a little more excitement to fuel our fire, man.
Yeah. Do you think that we've finally gotten their attention?
I think so.
I mean that's halfway said tongue in cheek, but then again, they haven't given us their attention very much.
Right. And I wouldn't go as far as to say that we have their full and utter, respect and admiration and all that. But I do think. I think
after this game we will, though.
Yeah, I could agree.
After they experience the way that we do things, the tailgate, the entire thing, I think that they're gonna feel a lot different about UCF.
I couldn't agree more. And the atmosphere, and I just think this is they're giving us our chance here. This is what we've all wanted. We've all wanted just the opportunity to show people. We want to be in that spotlight. You want to be treated the way that we're performing, and we finally are this week. This is a huge moment on so many different levels. But again, I mean, that's the whole thing. Talking about a university as a whole, it's a chance for us as alumni. It's a chance for us as fans, whatever it may be, to show what the Knight Nation's really all about. And the sellout is a huge start. I was so pumped to see that happen so quickly. I hope that it is a packed house at 8 p.m. and sure it will be. And so so many different things to kind of talk about and dissect about that, but just an awesome deal.
Well, I was just talking to the Cincinnati insider before I dialed you up. He was telling me that their allotment tickets sold out in 20 minutes.
Jeez.
So they're excited as well. And that's good.
No doubt.
I feel like
huge for them too.
Yeah. I mean, it's not only huge for UCF, it's huge for Cincinnati, and it's huge for the American in general.
Absolutely. No, and in my opinion, I think it's huge for, we say it's big for UCF in a number of ways. We talk about all this conference realignment and UCF possibly going and getting into a bigger conference and showcasing ourselves to the ACC and the Big 12 and all that. No better way to do that than to get a college game day. And that just boosts our resume one more tick for those conferences to say, wait a second, here's a school that's on game day. That's what they want. They want that exposure. They want schools that can bring that to the table for them. And so one more way to look at I don't know off the top of my head everywhere they've been. I mean, I could think back on where game day's been this year, but it's huge for us to. My point being, I don't know how many ACC schools or Big 12 schools, but it's a huge opportunity for us to have one more kind of notch in our belt when that conversation comes back around.
Yeah, I have a media release from them, and if I can find it here within, a couple of questions or whatever, I can talk on that a little bit.
Awesome.
It's been quite a bit, and we're finally getting in there. So
yeah,
I think it's big. As far as things that this university has been able to do and the football program has been able to do, where would you rank this? Because I almost think that this almost ranks up there with like a BCS win and like a Peach Bowl win, honestly, because of the exposure. Not
Absolutely.
Big as far as like game wise, but big as far as the exposure goes.
Huge. Yeah. It's huge. And I can speak from this, from a different dynamic, not to not talk about UCF, but my former university, when I went to Boise State, they had a game day there and they had a similar, they've had a similar upbringing, if you can call it that, than we have won a Fiesta Bowl and having some BCS wins, getting a game day at their site and having that excitement around and sort of a similar build as far as the program goes. And I saw where that took them as a university and where that took them as a fan base to have that kind of excitement. Again, we've talked about to have that ability to showcase your fandom, your university, your tailgating, your atmosphere, Memory Mall, and to see the sweet arena, to see the sweet campus and all we have to offer trust me, I think it's up there with the most important days of our university, especially from an athletic standpoint. Having seen what that'll do from a long-term perspective, I think it's huge. It's huge for UCF. It's huge for, our new president. It's huge for our young AD. It's huge for our brand new football coach. I mean, this is a big thing that people should not undermine. I just think this is a moment to really be proud of what our program's doing.
Absolutely. Okay, so I have the information now. The University of Central Florida is the 71st different school to host College Game Day, and Orlando is the 83rd different city to host.
Wow.
This is their 358th episode and headgear pick 323.
Jeez, how about that?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Corso's an Orlando guy too, man. It'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, so Lee Corso he's never put on a UCF or a Cincinnati mascot head. His pick will be the 58th different mascot head he's donned at the end of the show.
So cool.
So cool. I hope to God that it's a UCF head.
I can't imagine it's not, man. I don't want to jinx us, but him being a UCF guy and tear we're on. Man. I think he might get run out of town if it doesn't happen. I mean, it's similar to like a Washington State. They waited all those years, to get one there. And just a cool deal, though.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about last week's game. We saw a very, very, very. We've talked about vanilla offense all year long, and we'd seen some flashes of craziness. And then going back to this last week, we saw the extreme vanilla. 99% of the plays. I mean, there may have been one or two, there may have been a reverse or something, but the rest of it was probably the most vanilla, run up the middle, do everything that you can to win the game and not do anything extra.
For sure. Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. A couple things popped in my mind right away. Late in the season, and the argument there is that, yes, it's late in the season. You should have more of your offense installed to where you don't have to teach much. You're just kind of rolling with what you have. But my other side to that would be it's late in the season. You get worn down. You get mentally kind of fried. It's one of those weeks where you obviously feel like you have an advantage physically. You have an advantage with speed, athleticism, size, whatever it may be. You have an advantage up front. So it's a week that you feel like you can, quote unquote, take a week off from really exacerbating these guys mentally. And not to say that our execution lacked. And I think that's the positive to take out of it on the offensive side, at least. I thought our execution was pretty good. I also, at times, we showed a lot of explosion still with being vanilla. I mean, you look at like a Dredrick Snelson who shows flashes every week, I feel like, of being a number one receiver that's got big playability at any point. He even, he's got some explosion in there with some very vanilla kind of RPO, attacking the seam, post, bang eight, stuff like that. So, very vanilla, but at times, still have the ability to be explosive and take advantage of some of our playmakers. And I don't expect for Coach Heupel to do that this week, especially with everything that's going on. I mean, coaches are going to coach the way they want to prepare for teams, but you can't tell me that with all the excitement and exposure we're getting this week that they're not going to have some things geared up to stick it to some people and show some people what we can do and what he can do as an offensive mind, as a coach, but also to showcase his talent and the kind of team that we have. So I expect that to change this week, but as long as on the offensive side, we still have that execution and we still move the line of scrimmage like we did. I mean, I thought our offensive line this past week played outstanding, and they're moving the line of scrimmage against, Navy's obviously not as talented as they've been in years past, but they do have good guys up front. I mean, they've got good, strong guys up front that aren't going to quit. And we moved the line of scrimmage pretty well this week. We ran the ball, I thought pretty good at will. I would have liked at times for us to kind of put our foot down and kind of step on their throats a little bit, if you will, and really send a message. This was a week we could have done that. But at the same time, we got a good quality win, and it was never in doubt that we were going to win the ball game. But you'd have liked to have seen it run away a little bit more.
Yeah, a lot of the feedback that I've gotten from fans and just stuff that I've read is they were kind of upset that we didn't really pour it on them. But I feel like what I was watching, it was boring to me. What I was watching, though, was just making sure that we won the game no matter what we had to do to win it, and to do it without getting anybody hurt. With giving some people some time off as well, because Coobs wasn't out there, so he got some time off. There's a couple other people that probably weren't as noticeable that got time off.
Right. It's a super boring game too, because we're vanilla on offense in our scheme on that week, but Navy's pretty vanilla too. They're pretty boring to watch also with their offense. I mean, they can be explosive at times, but it's not necessarily the most riveting of games to watch. So it's a terrible week for us to get vanilla, because the whole game is then boring, right? So it can make us seem even a little bit more boring. But no, I thought at this point in time, to what we're trying to do, and climb up in the polls and be noticed and be respected, it's not in my opinion, it's not enough to win, but we are going to have to start winning pretty convincingly, again, especially against these opponents that we're no doubt supposed to beat, like a Navy, and we've done that for the most part this year. FAU at that point in time, early on in the year, was a little bit better of an opponent, I believe, but I still thought we were pretty impressive that game as well with our margin of victory. But that's the thing, like against the Navy, you want to have a little bit more of a convincing W, and that's the only thing I was a little down about.
I don't think that Heupel thinks that way. I don't think that he cares what the polls say. I don't think he cares about what anybody says. And
I like that.
I do too. I love it.
I mean, as a fan, I want us to get all the respect and all that, but you as a former player and you've been around the game a lot as well, I mean, that's how I want my coach to be. I don't want him coming in talking about the polls and talking about the voters and talking about all that nonsense. I mean, let's just win the ball game. Let's be a good coaching staff, and let's play hard, and let's win the game.
And I think that's what you saw, and I just really feel like, that was what was going on, and that's what he said was going on. So
for sure. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have beaten them by 40 points, but they turned it up a little bit this week too. They played a much better game than they have played in the last few weeks. So
absolutely,
they're obviously working on it. It's coming up on Veterans Day, that was, and all that.
And it's they've obviously been successful in the past. I mean, it's not a Navy team that's year after year abysmal. I mean, last year, 2 years ago, they had a little number beside their name on the bottom of the screen, and they were ranked, and they're a pretty good team as well. So it's not a program that's an Austin Peay or South Carolina State to where we really fumbled. I mean, I think where you and I are kind of coming from and not panicking with only beating them by a little bit is we definitely showed we were the better team. There was never a doubt that we couldn't handle them. Just the way we went about our victory, I think, is where we're splitting hairs a little bit. But I do think that we had a good showing, and in showing we were more talented, showing we were the better team, I don't think there was a doubt there.
Well, somebody asked me, were you ever worried that we weren't going to win that game? And there, I had to think back, but there was no time that I ever questioned that we were going to win that game throughout that game.
Never. There was a couple I'm like, come on, guys. Shape up, buck it up a little bit here. But
let them score a couple more times than we probably really wanted to, obviously.
Right. As far as, the voters go. That's the only thing. Other than that, I mean, you're splitting hairs a tad.
Right. Absolutely.
22 straight victories or whatever it is.
Right. We're trying to find something. I mean, there was 695 yards of rushing in this game. 0 yards passing by Navy.
Yeah.
392 on the ground by them with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different players, and 303 by us on the ground, plus our 200 yards of passing. So another thing, my guy Greg McCrae, another 100-yard game, 2 100-yard games in a row on 17 carries.
Yeah, you've called that one. I can tell you, he's starting to get some love from everybody too. Announcers, I mean, everyone's starting to notice that guy. Hard not to, obviously, but man, what a baller!
Yeah,
what a baller.
I mean, like I said, he just has something a little bit different than the other guys do. Not
Absolutely.
taking anything away from anybody else, but
For
you know,
sure.
if I was this coaching staff, I would use Killens and Anderson to do the around the edge things, the over the middle, you know, shooting them a pass, you know,
Absolutely.
doing the
Special
little
teams.
weird stuff. But just give the rock to McRae and let him run. He got
You let him tote
17
it.
carries, one more carry than he had last week, you know, so I
That's it.
expect to see him. I think, and I really do, especially against you know, the front four of Cincinnati, who's pretty good. I would expect to see Greg McRae get the ball a lot more. I would also expect to see Taj get it a little bit more.
I would too. And I definitely think you definitely see Coops a lot more this game. You see more of that tight end fullback package that we're accustomed to seeing. That's going to be our extra blocker. We're going to see more of those big sets because Cincinnati is good up front. They're good on the defense side of the ball. Always are. They bring pressure. They light you up. And so it'll be a good test for us this week. I'm glad. You know, obviously game day is not going to pick a slouch game, but I'm glad that they picked this one. I'm glad they picked a test because it'll be a fun game.
I mean, both teams are ranked, you know, and it's huge for, like I've kept saying, I've said it a million times, it's huge for the American.
Absolutely.
You know, the whole deal, having two American teams. One of the biggest things to me is this is not a game against a Power 5 team that they picked to come here. It's a game against an American team. Two American teams.
Yep.
The whole nation gets to see what the American is all about.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And, you know, we talked a little bit last week. It's funny that this happened this week because, you know, you and I had a long conversation last week on the show about Mike Oresco. I think it was last week, about Mike Oresco and sort of his absence in this rise of the whole American, but specifically UCF. And who knows how much work he's doing behind the scenes and not on Twitter and not on social media, whatever it may be. Who knows how big of a role he had to play in this. You know, there's a lot of things that go, and there's a lot of politics into where game day goes and where the decisions that are made for this kind of stuff. So huge for the American, fired up for the whole conference for sure. It'll be a big one.
Talked a little bit about Cincinnati's defense. What else do you know about Cincinnati? What do we need to know?
Yeah, I think their offense, I always like watching their offense. I always think that they have a pretty good scheme, even throughout with the new, you know, I played against Tommy Tuberville when he was there, and they sort of had a rollover into this current staff with what they do on the offensive side of the ball. And I've always liked it. What they do a really good job of attacking you. They really put a lot of pressure on your outside linebackers. They really put a lot of pressure on your safeties to be disciplined and to work hand in hand with your outside linebackers. The reason I say that is because they're big in the RPO game and the play action game, but where they attack you is not on the bubble screens. It's not on the perimeter. It's up the seams. It's on the bang aids. So your outside linebackers have to carry those guys and be disciplined. And when they do pass them off to safeties, the safeties have to be working with the outside linebackers. So that's going to be a matchup this week that is huge for us to really have to be disciplined in. And then we got to stop the run. They always put a lot of yards on the run game. They throw it really well, but they kind of have a sneaky running attack to where they really get you. And so they've had some good running backs in the past. This is no different here. They've got a stud back there. And so that's sort of my take on Cincinnati's scheme, if you will, and I think it's going to be a big week for us. I'm confident that our safeties are a strong point of our defense, but at the same time, where I do worry is sometimes I've had a worry with our outside linebackers and some of those guys this year. We have guys that are able to do it and very capable, but this will be a test for them this week in that regard.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Does that worry you about you mentioned outside linebackers and safeties? They have to work together, and we've seen a little bit of an issue there.
Absolutely. It is a worry. It's a worry. I think we're a little less athletic, not at safety, but at the outside linebacker position specifically this year than we have been in the past. And that's my big worry. I don't think it's a worry of if we have guys that can conceptually get it or guys that are always out of position. I just think that we're a little less unathletic for the scheme that we need to run against certain opponents. I just think it's going to be a big week for Gibson and Richie Grant to cover up. Good teams have players in the back end, have players around your team that can cover up some of your weaknesses. That's why they name that position safety, because it's the safety of the defense.
True.
It's the safety net of everyone, and that just happens to be, in my opinion, one of the stronger units on our whole team. And so it's a big week for them. Yes, to answer your question in one word, it does worry me, not the safeties, but the outside linebackers. But at the same time, I like our coaching staff and Heupel, obviously. I mean, look at last week. We scored on that very way I was talking about Cincinnati attacks you a lot with the seams, the RPOs and stuff like that, play action. We scored a couple times on last week. So those guys see it a lot. They know how to attack the defense that way. So hopefully they know how to stop it. And it'll be interesting to see.
When I talked to the Cincinnati insider, he said, and I asked him, what is it going to take to beat UCF, basically, and he said Memphis showed us how to do it. So
yeah, yes, I guess. I think that was an extremely sloppy game. I think on both sides of the ball, obviously, for that game had a little bit of our it was our first shock of this season, in my opinion. It was our first time that we really had to put our backs against the wall, do something differently, maybe get surprised a little bit by what we saw. And so, no doubt about it, Cincinnati having similar athletes in a similar scheme week to week, they're gonna do exactly what Memphis did. They're gonna try to run the ball on the perimeter. They're gonna try to kill us with RPOs. They're gonna try to back us with those bubble screens and smoke screens, and then try to hit us on double moves just like Memphis did. I wouldn't be surprised if Cincinnati tried to take the top off a little bit and test our DBs. They've got some size on the outside. But no doubt, I mean, I think the Memphis game has been something that everyone has tried to replicate. But at the same time, again, I think that was just as much us hurting ourselves during that game than anybody else.
Right.
Not taking anything away from Memphis, but I mean, I remember you and I talking after that game.
Right.
We didn't play very well.
Exactly.
And so, it is what it is. Again, Memphis always has a good scheme and they have a good offense historically, but at the same time, obviously that was a little bit of a fluke game.
Right. All right. So what's the key on offense for UCF to win this game?
If I have to pick one, I think it'll be to be very multiple in our looks and our formations and our motions. I'd like to see them mix in a little bit more of shifts and motions, use some of those, orbit motions to get some guys running around a little bit, show some different looks, get numbers flipping around. So throw some motions where you're flipping the field from 2x2 looks, 3x1 looks, maybe some overload 4x0 looks, stuff like that. Use our tight end to do that as well. Overload some sides, I think, too. Cincinnati historically has been sort of a run-heavy defense, so I think attacking some of those numbers into the boundary is important this week on offense, and using our tight ends who are really good to be able to create some of those mismatches against getting an outside linebacker to the boundary, and having Greg McCrae with his ability to make one cut and gain, get 7 yards just by making one cut and running hard downhill. I think it's a big week for us to be able to do that. But to be multiple in our looks, I think is important. And then on defense, it's just to be very disciplined. Again, I think I touched on the most important part, in my opinion, of what they need to do, and that's for our outside linebackers. Oddly enough, that's kind of a weird thing to say as like a be-all, end-all for our defense, but I really, truly do believe it is. I think this is a week where our outside linebackers and our safeties on the defensive side of the ball make or break us this week. Again, getting pressure on the quarterback can never be undermined. I think that's the first and foremost, the most important part. Some of these offenses, it's tough because they get it out so fast, and Cincinnati's no exception to that. But we have got to do a better job getting Joey Connors involved, and Tristan Hill showed flashes last week of being able to dominate a little bit up there again. Those guys get some pressure back there and not letting him be comfortable in the pocket, allowing our guys to be smart and disciplined on the second level while they're passing some of that stuff off is big.
Who needs to make statements this week, offense and defense?
It's easy to pick these guys because I feel like every week someone pops out on offense, especially. This week, I think it's huge for our tight ends to be super involved in the pass game. I think it's a huge game for Cougs to come back. We talked about how he was absent last week. Not really his fault, but, I think it's a big week for him to be able to be kind of that sneaky weapon he's been for us. A lot of that RPO stuff in the red zone, get involved in the run game. But, and then on the outside, aim for Gabe Davis to be able to kind of take over. We've done a good job of spreading the wealth and having those guys not have to carry the load. But I think it's a huge opportunity for him on the outside to really kind of dominate, be that third down go-to guy, that guy that can sort of take over the game. And then, Trigger Man's always the guy you need to sort of play the best, but goes without saying that we need to have a big game from him. Defensive side of the ball, whole linebacker core. I can't say it enough, but if I got to pick one guy, it'd be Kyle Gibson. Not only from his play, but his communication. I think it's big for him this week to have a role back there as sort of the quarterback. That should be his role every week, but this kind of tenfold. I think it's a big week for him to step up, be communicating, make sure everyone's in the right position, make sure everyone's dialed into their assignments, their keys and reads, etc. So big week.
All right. Well, we will see very shortly here coming up in just another couple of days. I have not had this much anticipation for a regular season game for quite a while. So
no doubt. I'm with you.
I'm really looking forward to it.
I know. It's been a while. I mean, I can't remember. I mean, even when I played, how much having anticipation for games like this, maybe dating back maybe to the Michigan game for me.
Yeah.
But it's a big one, man, for the whole university. Very cool opportunity for us, no doubt.
All right. Well, also the other thing is Senior Day. Yeah. And this came up really fast on me. The other day I thought about it. I just was like, whoa, wait a second. Senior Day. I was looking through the list. Man, it's a second consecutive Senior Day for Cougs.
Cougs, I know. You know what's so cool about this, too, that this is Senior Day and that game day's here. Just sort of being involved in this program and seeing where it's come. This is the class that came in that year that we went 0-12. This was the first class that was involved in that. So this is we owe a lot to this senior class that has really carried the torch in making this transition to where we are right now. The Wyatt Millers of the world, Pat Jazinski's, Caleb Perez, Matt Loudermilk, Kyle Gibson, all those guys. These are the guys. This is the class. So stand up and cheer extra loud.
I think that this is the last of the O'Leary guys too.
Yeah, this is it. This is his last.
Recruiting class. Yeah,
no doubt, for sure.
That's big.
Very, very suiting that game day's here this week and that it's Senior Day, because this is we owe a lot to all these guys that are going to be hugging their moms and giving them flowers Sunday.
Absolutely,
that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. This is we lose a lot of good players this year. A
lot of experience.
Yeah. I'm a little worried about next year personally already. Just looking through that list. I don't want to talk too much about it now. We'll talk a lot about it later, obviously. Yeah. But, man.
We got at least 3 more games to enjoy them.
Yeah,
so, I guess four more, but very cool.
Yep. All right.
Awesome.
Well, Nick, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I can't wait for this week.
Yeah. We'll talk after the game, but this is a huge week. Can't wait. Thanks for having me.
So it all comes down to this. A win would move UCF to 10-0 and would be the Knights' 23rd straight victory. A win would also be UCF's 14th straight at home, with Black Friday clash with the Cows in Tampa closing out the regular season. Most importantly, a win would give UCF the Eastern Division crown and a date in the American Athletic Conference Championship game. Here's what you need to do before Saturday's 8 p.m. kickoff in a game airing on ABC. Number 1, listen to Knightline 170 as we recap UCF's win over Navy. And number 2, get your football game prep continued with the latest episode of The Sons of UCF. For Trace Trylko, I'm Andrew Phegley. Thanks for listening to Knightline Extra. Enjoy game day, go Knights, and charge on.